This podcast is brought to you by Viking Capital, your best friend in swimming pool financing for over 20 years.
Welcome back to the Pool Magazine podcast, where we explore the ideas, innovations, and insights shaping the future of the pool industry. Today's episode is all about trust and how one thing above all else builds it with pool owners: water quality. I'm your host, Joe Trusty, and today we're going deep on the technology and strategy behind perfect pool water: filtration, sanitization, chemistry, and how mastering all three builds a loyal, trusting customer base. My guest today is Yann Morvan, product line leader for smart water quality at Pentair Pool. Yann works at the intersection of technology, water chemistry, and real-world pool professional challenges, helping the industry deliver water that customers can truly see and feel. Yann, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. Excited to talk about pool water quality today. That's my passion. So always happy to dig into stuff.
Delighted to have you here. I want to start broad before we get into the technology. When Pentair talks about perfect water, what does that actually mean? Because to a homeowner, I mean, a pool looks either clean or dirty, but there's a lot more going on beneath the surface there.
No, you're absolutely right. And, it's a great way to put it. Most homeowners, they only see the end result. To me, perfect water is like an orchestra of different elements, all working in harmony. You get clarity, which is the visual part, right? That sparkle when the sunlight hits the surface. You've got the balance, the pH, the alkalinity, the calcium harness, the CYA, all working together to protect both the swimmers and the equipment. And then you've got chlorine sanitization, right? That's the invisible layer that makes the water safe. So when all of three are really dialed in, you get what I would describe the perfect resort pool experience. That silky feel, no harsh smell, water that just invites you in. And when one of those elements is off, well, the whole experience breaks down. The water looks dull, smells off, or worse, it becomes unsafe.
From a business perspective, I mean, why does that matter so much to pool pros?
Well, because water quality is essentially the signature of a pool professional's work. It's the most visible, or sometimes invisible, but that's really the proof of their craftsmanship. If the water is always perfect, every time a homeowner steps outside, that builds deep trust. They stop thinking about their pool as something that needs managing and start experiencing it as something that it just works, that they can enjoy. And that loyalty is incredibly powerful for a service business. And then on the flip side, cloudy or unbalanced water is often the number one reason clients switch service providers. So the stakes are real.
Let's get into the technology side of things, starting with salt chlorine generators, because it's clearly dominant right now. Over 70% of new in-ground pools in the U.S. are going in with salt systems, but there's still a lot of homeowner confusion and hesitation out there. What's the biggest misconceptions you encounter?
Yeah. Well, there are actually really four big ones that come up over and over again when we talk about, salt pools and salt chlorine generators. And I think being able to address them very clearly and confidently is one of the most valuable things that a pool professional can do when they're talking to a client who's on the fence. The first one, and probably the biggest misconception, is that salt pools are chlorine-free. Well, this one is so widespread and it's completely false. Salt systems produce chlorine. That's literally what they do. They just produce it on site from the dissolved in the water rather than requiring you to manually add tablets or liquid chlorine. The sanitization mechanism is identical. What's different is the delivery method. So instead of those big swings in chlorine level that you get when you dump, a jug of liquid chlorine, the salt system actually microdoses constantly. So it's giving you a much more consistent and stable chlorine level around the clock. And some clients are, sometimes disappointed when they hear this. They thought that they were getting away from chlorine entirely, but I actually think that being upfront about it builds more trust than letting them believe the myth. And when you explain the consistency benefit, most people come around quickly.
I think you nailed it. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. What's the second biggest misconception, would you say?
The second one is that the water will taste or feel like the ocean. This one is understandable because when people hear saltwater pool, their brain immediately goes to the beach. But the numbers tells a complete different story. The properly maintained saltwater pool runs at about 3,500 parts per million of salt. The ocean sits at roughly 35,000 parts per million. So that's 10 times higher. At pool salt levels, most people generally cannot test the salt in the water at all. What they do notice is that the water feels softer, more pleasant, which is one of the real benefits. And honestly, the best way to overcome this misconception it isn't the explanation, it's the experience that you can give. If you can get an hesitant client into a well-maintained salt pool, even at a hotel or a friend's house, the water does the selling for you. There's no pitch that I can give you today that would compete with that first-hand feeling.
And the third?
And the third one would be that salt pools are completely maintenance-free. I mean, this one can actually cause problem if it's not addressed upfront, because clients will believe it may neglect their pool and then blame the system when something goes wrong. I mean, salt systems do dramatically reduce day-to-day maintenance. That is completely true. You're not manually adding chlorine. The system is regulating itself, and when connected to automation, you have real-time visibility into what's happening. But it's not a zero maintenance game. You will still need to monitor and manage the pH regularly. Salt systems tend to push pH upward over time, so that needs attention. You still need to monitor salt levels, and you'll need to replace the cell itself eventually. Typically, you're looking at every 5 to 7 years, depending on usage and care. But the real value proposition is that the daily burden is dramatically lighter and the consistency is dramatically higher. And that's the compelling story. You just want to make sure that clients go in with accurate expectations so that they're not surprised down the road.
The fourth big misconception, what would you say that is?
Yeah, the fourth one would be the cost. A lot of people assume that salt systems are more expensive overall. And yes, there is a higher upfront investment compared to a traditional chlorine setup. But when you look at the longer term picture, depending on the pool size and the location, traditional chlorination can run hundreds of dollars a month in chemical cost. A sale lasts 5 to 7 years. And when you run those numbers out, the economics, strongly favor salt in most cases. Plus, when you factor in the reduced labor of not having to manually manage chlorine additions, the value picture gets even clearer.
Well, you're the perfect one to ask this question to. How does the actual chemistry work for our listeners who want to be able to explain it to their clients?
Yeah, that's one we often get. It's actually very simple once you understand it. I mean, you have the salt, right, in the pool, the sodium chloride that is dissolved and in the pool water at very low concentration that we talked about, 3,500 ppm. The cell, which sits in the plumbing line, has titanium blades inside the unit that's also coated with a special ruthenium compound. And when electricity passes through those blades, it triggers an electrolytic process that separates the chlorine from the sodium. And that chlorine then enters the pool water and does its sanitization work. And here's the beautiful part, because once it's done sanitizing, it converts back into salt. So it's essentially a closed loop. The salt is not consumed by the process. The only reasons that you would need to add more salt over time are things like backwashing or splash out or heavy rainfall that could be diluting the pool, but not the chemistry itself.
That's a great explanation. A chlorine factory built right into your plumbing. That's how I describe it to a homeowner.
Yeah, exactly. And a very precise one, very consistent factory at that.
Well, let's talk about what's new from Pentair Pool on the salt cell side, because the IntelliChlor chlorine generators have been redesigned recently. For service professionals that are listening in, what are the headline improvements and why do they matter out in the field?
So the redesign was really driven by feedback that we got from our service professional and customers. This update started by really listening to our customers, to our service professionals. Builders and service professionals told us that they wanted equipment that fit the realities of the pad and the service call. So they asked for something that was more modular, more serviceable, and more value included right in the box. So installs are smoother and ongoing care is easier. And that feedback directly shaped the new IntelliChlor, the LT and Plus. So it's really designed to be flexible on the pad, intuitive to work with, and easier to maintain without obviously sacrificing the reliability that the IntelliChlor is known for. And the central theme of all that feedback was really one word. It was about serviceability. So the first major change in the new design is that now the electronics module is fully modular. So it simply clicks on and off. And if there is any issue with the electronics, you can just replace that component. You don't have to replace the entire cell. So that alone is a significant cost and time saving for the service pro.
And the sensor improvements?
Yeah, there was some big upgrade there as well. The new sensor module is now a 3-in-1 unit that measures temperature, flow, and salinity. And that salinity reading is also important, obviously. It's now 98% as accurate as a lab-grade tester. With the old system, there was always some uncertainty about whether the number that you were seeing on the screen actually reflected reality. Now, when the service pro looks at the LCD screen and see a salt level, they can trust that number. And that confidence obviously matters when you're making decisions about chemistry adjustment. We also redesigned the sensor module for easier replacement. Previously, when you were swapping out the flow switch on the old IntelliChlor, you had to worry about stripping the wires, rewiring, putting plumbing tape. So that was, pretty time consuming. Now the new module comes out with 6 screws, drops right back in, and then the process is about 50% faster. So that time savings adds up significantly across hundreds of service calls.
Well, let me ask you a question. What about diagnostics? Because one of the most time-consuming parts of service work is troubleshooting, actually figuring out what's actually wrong before you can fix it.
Well, this is one of the improvements that I'm most excited about. The new unit now has over 20 onboard diagnostics and troubleshooting codes that's displayed again right on the LCD. So when a service pro pulls to a job with a salt system issue, they're not guessing. They're not swapping parts hoping to find the problem. The system tells them clearly where the issue is in the cell, or if it's in the power center or the automation connection. That means faster diagnosis, faster resolution, again, less time spent on the site for each call, which matters again a lot when you're managing hundreds of pulls a week. And if a system is connected to automation, those diagnostics are also visible remotely. So you may be able to triage, the issue before you even leave the truck.
Can you also share what more in the box really means for pool pros?
Yeah, absolutely. So more in the box means that we're helping the pros start strong from day one. That includes things like tools and accessories that support the routine maintenance of this system. So they're not scrambling for extra or cutting corners or having to order additional parts. It's about really respecting their times and helping them deliver consistent results without added friction. So now we include an acid wash stand in every box to make the maintenance of those units easier and faster. So again, when the equipment supports the way that the pros actually work, water quality becomes easier to maintain, and it's a question about trust that becomes, easier to earn.
For service pros who have a lot of legacy IntelliChlors or iChlors out in the field, is retrofitting to the new system complicated?
Well, that was really a critical design requirement for us. We wanted zero friction in the upgrade path. So the new cell is 100% drop-in replacement from the old IntelliChlor to the new one in terms of physical footprint. It's the exact same dimensions, same plumbing connections, same distance from center of union to ground at 1.8 inches. There should be no replumbing required. And then on the electrical side, it's compatible with the existing PC100 power center, and the automation connections use the same plug and transformer setup. So again, a service pro can walk up to an existing installation and swap to the new cell without any significant additional work. And then for the smaller iChlor 30 market, which is more prevalent in Florida and similar markets, we have a matching smaller form factor cell that is a complete drop-in for that unit as well. And if you're upgrading, let's say, from an IntelliChlor 15 or 20 to the new LT15 or LT25 model, we also include a spacer right in the box to handle any dimensional differences. So it should really feel seamless.
Talk to me about warranty coverage.
So with the new product, we have two product families. We have the LT line, which has 2 models, the LT15 and the LT25. Those are designed for 6,000 hours of chlorinating life, chlorinating time. So the actual time, when the unit is producing chlorine. So those come with a 2-year warranty. And then we have the Plus line, which is 3 models, the Plus 30, Plus 40, and Plus 60. And those are rated for 10,000 hours of chlorinating life, which matches what professionals expected from the old IntelliChlor. And those carry a 3-year warranty. So solid, warranty coverage across the board, and the higher tier plus line gives our customers real long-term confidence in their investment.
Let's shift gears a bit and talk about filtration because sanitization and filtration really have to work together out there. Pleatco is now part of the Pentair family. So what does that mean for pool pros and their clients?
Yeah, it's a really exciting addition because Pleatco is so well regarded for cartridge filter quality. So what it means practically is that Pleatco's ultra cartridges are now standard across Pentair's cartridge filter lineup. So right out of the box, the Pleatco ultra cartridges are included with every new Pentair filter. So you're getting our highest performing filter element from day one. And that's an immediate water quality improvement for any new installation. The Pleatco Ultra technology has 3 core differentiators that's worth knowing. First is the pure pleat technology. This ensures that the pleats stay properly and evenly spaced, preventing the bunching that reduces filter surface area and effectiveness over time. Second is their point bonded filter media, which creates uniform dirt capture across the entire surface of the cartridge. That translates to longer cleaning intervals. You're not having to pull and clean cartridges as frequently. And then third is the free flow core design, which maximizes the internal space water flow through, reducing operating pressures across the system. So you put those 3 things together and you get better clarity, you get lower energy demand on your pump, and you save maintenance over time. So that's a meaningful improvement for both the professional and the homeowner.
Let me ask you, how do you think about filter selection for our customers and sand versus cartridge versus DE?
Well, it really comes down to what the pool demands and what the client values. Sand is the baseline. Simple to service, backwash, good for people that aren't dealing with heavy debris loads or demanding water clarity requirements. It's practical, low maintenance choice for the right application. Then you have cartridge that step things up considerably, with better filtration, better clarity, and importantly, no backwashing, which makes it a great fit for areas with water restrictions. With Pleatco now in the family, cartridge has gotten meaningfully better. And then DE filtration gives you the finest particle capture of the 3 with excellent clarity, but with more involved maintenance. So, each of them has its place, and knowing which to recommend for which situation is really part of what sets a knowledgeable service professional, from another.
Good explanation. I want to elevate the conversation for a minute. And let's talk about the idea of predictive care versus reactive maintenance. And it feels like a significant shift in how this whole industry thinks about water quality. What does that future look like?
Well, it's really the direction that everything is heading, and I think it's absolutely transformative for the pool professionals and the homeowners. Right now, the model of pool water care is truly reactive. Something looks off, you test it, you adjust it, you wait, you test again. But even with experienced professionals doing a fantastic work, there's a lag in that system. So the vision is for what I call predictive care, so that sensors are continuously monitoring the key parameters, the pH, the ORP, the temperature, the salinity, the flow. And then the system is making macro adjustments in real time before any of those parameters can drift into a problem range. So you're not just responding to a cloudy water, you're actually preventing the conditions that lead to that cloudy water. And then when that's connected to a full automation platform like IntelliCenter, a service professional can see all of that data remotely, that remote visibility, right? So they can check a pool's chemistry status without being on site. They can spot a trend before it becomes a problem. That's a complete different service model and a very compelling one to sell to our customers who want to have complete peace of mind.
Yeah, it's almost like shifting from being a pool cleaner to being a water quality analyst at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And the professionals that embrace that shift, who invest in understanding these connected systems, and use them to deliver a fundamentally different level of service, those are the ones I believe are going to win on trust and retention because their clients will simply never have, a bad pool day, no downtime.
This has been a great conversation. Before we close, if there's one thing you want every pool pro listening to take away from today, what is it going to be?
Well, I will say this. I mean, water quality is not just a technical outcome. To me, it's really an experience that you deliver to your customers. It's the foundation of everything that they think about you and your business, whether it's the professional or whether it's, us, Pentair as a manufacturer. And the technology that we've talked about today, whether it's smarter salt cells, better filtration, connected monitoring, automation, all of it exists to help you deliver that experience more consistently, more efficiently, and with greater confidence. And the professionals who treat water quality as a craft, who use the best tools available and stay ahead of those problems rather than chasing them, those are the ones that are building businesses that last.
Beautifully said, my friend. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us today on the podcast.
Well, that's my pleasure. Yeah. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you all for listening in. If you want to learn more about the products and technologies we've been discussing today, the new IntelliChlor Pleatco cartridges and Pentair Pool full automation systems lineup, head over to pentairpool.com and connect with your local Pentair dealer. Thanks for listening in. Make sure to like, share, follow, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on another episode of Pool Magazine Podcast.
You know you could be financing more pool construction projects if your customers had easier access to funds. The potential to increase your number of pool sales would go up dramatically if you could find a way to make that happen. Viking Capital has been helping pool builders connect their customers with the funds they need to build their dream backyard for over 20 years. A reliable and trusted financing partner in the pool industry, we're working with some of the leading builders in the nation to provide their customers with more approvals, lower interest rates, and larger loan amounts. Great communication is also what sets us apart. Our loan status software gives builders real-time reporting on their finance projects. Providing transparency and taking the mystery out of that process is a big part of why we're the partner of choice for pool builders from coast to coast. Want a better financing solution? Schedule a consultation with a Viking Capital representative today.